We are live. Abdul, you can. Technical difficulties
I was I
sorted.
was I was going to let you say, and here today we have Abdul, and then I come in.
I like the entrance. I like the entrance.
Yeah,
But how's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the AFC Newsday pod. You see, Dan's changed a bit, but no, he's not able to do this week. So we thought just to get an extra episode out, we'd bring a lovely, lovely guest, a very special guest, Abdul at Flamniester on Twitter. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, bro. I'm good. Yeah, just happy to be here and help you guys out.
Lovely. Today we're going to be discussing obviously Arsenal, shock horror. Nottingham Forest, the game on Saturday, the 2-1 victory. Lot of interesting reaction on Twitter, shall we say? And of course the game looking ahead to Monday night, Crystal Palace away, Selhurst Park under the lights to an extent because it's nice and bright around that time,
Mm.
so I don't mind it. And Arsenal's latest number 22, latest new signing. Abdul, I guess the best way to start is on David Raya, Arsenal's latest new signing. You have a big soft spot for Brentford as well as Arsenal. So, what is your opinion on the signing? I guess you've kind of won in both worlds.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah, I saw Brentford as well, so it's a tricky one. It's a very mixed feeling. But I knew Raya would leave this summer. And obviously he was linked with Spurs for a bit. Then he was linked with Bayern Munich, and truth is, I feel like Matt Turner wanted to leave, which is understandable, and I wish him the best of luck at Forest. And then Arsenal thinking, you know, what kind of opportunities can we look for? That right is available because he's got 1 year left, so and he wants to leave, so they just obviously pounced on it. Obviously, we were linked with Raya back in 2020. Um, Arsenal couldn't get him. He signed a new deal, and yeah, and he's been an exceptional player for Brentford, and I'm very happy that um, though it's a bit sad he's in Brentford, it was going to happen eventually, and I'm glad that he got a big move, big Champions League club, one of the biggest clubs in the world. So yeah, I'm very happy he's here, and yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how he challenges Ramsdale for the number one spot.
Yeah, as you say, the challenging aspect especially is it's an interesting one because people just don't associate competition in a big way with keepers, but it's also interesting to think I'd say Edison Ortega is the most recent comparison in that sense. I think because Ortega didn't come from a high profile club, he's probably not looked upon in a big way as nothing more than a number two. But I think his footwork, his quality, and everything is almost like a player who could start for a lot of Premier League club. So maybe that's an interesting example of a club who has two top keepers, and I think that's the exact dynamic now which we're replicating.
Yeah.
Obviously, the current number one, Aaron Ramsdale. What do you think is just going to be a thing where it's competition? See what happens, who wins the number one spot? Do you think Ramsdale's still a solid favourite? I think personally he's fantastic keeper still. But what do you think? Do you think David Ray is here to take his spot, or he will take his spot? Do you think it's going to be a rotational thing? And if so, how do you think that's going to work out?
Yeah, I mean, generally you don't. Most teams don't have two very good goalkeepers. There's a hierarchy in that position, and I feel like last season there was definitely hierarchy in almost every position. There was very few positions where we were like, "Oh, these two can both play," because the last season we generally played the same 11 roughly every week. So I suppose this season Arteta doesn't want that, which is understandable, makes sense. Um, the only thing is obviously with goalkeepers, you don't think about having two very good goalkeepers vying for number one. The only time I can really think of that is like Barcelona when they had Stegen and Bravo before he joined Man City. And I guess Real Madrid. I remember Real Madrid when they had Iker Casillas and Diego Lopez, and Lopez won that battle. Um, but it's a very weird position to be in as an Arsenal fan because I expect every alpha position to have strength in depth, battles, competitions, and such. So it's uncharted territory, definitely, as a fan. But I think when it comes to Ramsdale and Raya, I think both of them are just very good goalkeepers. Probably I can't think of any other club that has a quote unquote second choice goalkeeper as good as Raya or Ramsdale if he becomes number two. So I think generally it's just going to be a case of whoever does really well will come in. I think for now Ramsdale will keep his spot, and Raya is probably aware of that. And over time, one of them will have to eventually be number one. And I think Arteta is aware of that. I think he feels over the next year or two, one of them will probably be like, okay, seriously, I have to leave if I'm not going to start here, and that's fine. Like sometimes you do have to think a bit short term, and other times you do have to think long term. So I think this is a very like a short term battle, but maybe that's not a problem at all. So I'm not really sure who's going to be number one, but if I had to put money on it, and I won't, then yeah, probably Ramsdale. Yeah, I'll probably say, but yeah, I mean, I do prefer Raya in terms of just his overall package, but he is a bit more experienced. He's a lot of the things Ramsdale's really good at. He's been doing it for a very long time. Whereas Ramsdale, he made it like a big step up from Sheffield United to Arsenal. So there's still things he needs to learn, but I think both are very, very good goalkeepers, like amongst the best in the Premier League. So
Yeah, completely agree. I mean, as you say, the profile wise that they can do very similar things. Of course, Raya is a bit older, a bit more experienced, as you said, but fantastic deal. I mean, a 3 million loan, I think it is, with a 27 mil buy option, which
yeah,
I think it also benefits Brentford because Raya's, been, I guess, very not reasonable, but like signing a 2-year contract with an option for a third.
yeah,
If anything did go wrong with the Arsenal move, it just gives Brentford that security. And I think building relationships with those types of clubs is great. And me personally, I'm a big fan of Brentford. And ever since they've come to the Premier League, I've enjoyed watching them and stuff. So that's not just because you're here, that's just how it is.
okay,
But
good to know. Good to know. Yeah,
moving swiftly on,
yeah,
going a bit back in time. Of course, we already covered Raya, which is a bit back in time, but going about a week. I'm talking about it's going to be years now. But well, actually, no. Just before we do go years, Theo Walcott's retired. Absolutely
yeah.
late as anything. Love him.
Yeah, I
All
loved
the
him so
all the
much as a
best.
player. I loved him so much as a player. And yeah, he was. It's weird because obviously growing up, he was like one of the younger players that you look up to because they're like, oh man, like I wish I could be that. And sadly, I didn't become that. but
Yeah,
but yeah, Theo, I always loved him as a player. I always backed him. There was like a lot of like scrutiny about his career, but honestly, when you look back at it, like he over 100 goals for Arsenal, over 300 appearances for Arsenal, big goals, big moments, won trophies. He came back to Southampton. He did. I mean, it's a shame he got relegated with Southampton, but I mean, considering like everything he's done for himself, his career, I think he. A lot of people often ask whether he fulfilled his potential or not. I would like to say he did, but only for a short time because he had a really awful injury in 2014. And
yeah.
if he didn't have that injury, he goes to the World Cup, probably has a good World Cup. Um, would have, and I feel like the injury definitely did like slow him down a lot. But I mean, honestly, I mean, a player like him who came through a lot in terms of injuries, in terms of media scrutiny from the age of 16. I think,
Insane, really.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
16
16.
getting.
He was in a World Cup, and the whole world. If I consider like he joined Arsenal, I think January 2006, and then he didn't play until the following season. So effectively, he was in a World Cup squad before he played a Premier League game. So it's like every expectation people had on him was massive. And one thing I always say is people say, "Oh, he didn't fulfill his potential," but at the same time, people say all he had was pace, which was ridiculous because firstly, pace wasn't his only feature, and secondly, if it was his only feature, which it isn't, then I guess he didn't have as much potential as people thought. It's just because he broke through at such a young age. He was scoring goals for Southampton at the age of 16. So
It's
you know,
particularly when that was as well. Now you're seeing a lot more exports from abroad or
mm,
16-year-olds coming through in football. Even
yeah.
English players, I guess Jude Bellingham's the most notable one, but that was even at Birmingham. The fact that where's Arteta come from in this?
You know
Walcott,
what? I said
he's
in my
got to
mind
be
every
here,
time.
isn't he? I'm itching to
Yeah,
get it out. But yeah, the fact that Walcott came onto the scene that early is incredible. His longevity is great as well, and wish him all the best. Obviously, Dan as
yeah,
well. Him playing for Southampton last season as well. Not Dan, to clarify, but yeah. exciting stuff for him with the rest of his career.
Mm.
And on another player as well, because I'm going to pose a question now. Just as I like adding in a question every now and again, sometimes every episode, sometimes just another way of being spontaneous. But I like throwing in a question. Who is, for anyone watching, who is your favourite player of all time? Who got you into football? For me, my answer's Santi Cazorla. Just moved back to Real Oviedo a few days ago. Great for him. Fantastic stuff. Absolute joy to watch. Wish injuries never did him. Abdul, who's yours?
Um,
Very on the spot. I do apologise, but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
how it is.
Is with. I feel like my answer kind of changes a lot. I remember I said to a friend of mine like a couple of months ago that I feel like Saka's my favorite player now, and like I feel like he's shot up just because of the connection he has with the fans and such. And obviously, it's just nice to see such an amazing player come through. Um, Historically, it's always been Henri because my dad like pushed a lot of Henri propaganda onto me. Even I didn't watch I didn't watch much of him, but it was Fabregas for a while, then not Fabregas. It's hard actually. It is hard to say. I think I'll just say Saka just because I feel like that's the player that I have like such a big connection to, and there's not even like nostalgia with Saka. So it's even more. It's even more. I think it's a lot more powerful because there's no nostalgia that I'm hanging on to. So yeah, but if it was like a nostalgic answer, probably like Walcott,
Love Theo.
Ramsey. Yeah, I love Theo so much. Honestly, I have like some of these like children's books. That's how
Oh,
much I
well,
loved them as a
that's
kid. Like I still
love
have it
that.
somewhere in my house. So, but yeah, Walcott, Fabregas, obviously Henry. Um, Purest players, Fabregas and Van Persie, but I've lost like a lot of love for them due to like their departures and such. So, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. I mean, a lot of, I guess, unbelievable players over the years at Arsenal,
Mm.
aesthetically wise, quality wise, what they've achieved, incredible. Gonna do the cliche, if you haven't already liked, subscribed, and obviously I'll do at the end. I already mentioned Abdul's social media, but if you do want to follow any of our social medias, they're in the description. So yeah, haven't quite got nailed down that, but you know what? We go. Curran as well in the chat. How was it? Crazy breaking news. Interesting. Not sure it was that what that's alluding to, but anyway, to move swiftly onto the game I was going to talk about, Nottingham Forest. Abdul, who were your standout performers in that game?
I would say Saka, Martinelli, Saliba was excellent. He got an assist as well, which is pretty cool. Um, I think generally those three players. I was really impressed with Rice on the rewatch, and I think mainly due to a similar reason with City, where he was just filling in so many areas. Um, like generally filling in all phases of play, build up, second phase going forward as well. Um, and yeah, I think generally, Saka scored a fantastic goal. I was pleased for Eddie to get his goal. Um, and I think, although we didn't create a whole host of chances for up until the Nottingham Forest goal, it was a pretty comfortable game, especially first half, which was very, very dominant.
One
And yeah, it just
scoreline
yeah,
definitely just
scoreline wise, no,
changed
but
it for what
yeah,
people on Twitter or social media. I think results narrative is carries a huge weight. I think if we just won that game 2-0, I mean, I wouldn't have expected to see anything anyways, but that was
yeah,
quite the reaction on Twitter, eh?
yeah. If Rice scored that chance he had like a few minutes before Forest scored, 3-0, everyone would have just been like, "Wow, what an amazing performance!" But yeah, it's just honestly the goal frustrated me, and I even tweeted at it. Really frustrated me, mostly just because of the fact that we keep conceding a lot of like sloppy goals at home, especially. And it was a game in which Forest didn't create much, but they still got a goal. So it's frustrating in that respect. But for 80
I
minutes,
watched Wolves
yeah,
against United miss
yeah,
so many chances, and I just know any team who comes to the Emirates scores some scrappy goal, and it just
exactly, yeah. It's just like West Ham could have. I mean, it's not West Ham. Wolves could have scored 3 goals, and no one would have said, "Wow, how did they do that?" Because we all watched the game. So, but again, for 80 minutes, Arsenal were pretty dominant, pretty comfortable, could have scored more goals. Like the fact that we have two wingers who are just so dynamic and threatening in Martinelli and Saka, like that alone makes it much harder for teams to defend against us. So, yeah, again, it just showed all the hallmarks of what we're really good at. And the really interesting part was Arteta, obviously, he drops Gabriel for tactical reasons, and then the lineup we put out, with Timber, Saliba, and White, it's like the centre backs, quote unquote. And then we had like a little diamond shape at times, and then we also had like the box midfield at times, and that ability to just interchange and alternate between systems against like a really really deep block. I think it's encouraging because last season we weren't really able to chop and change. So it just shows not just the strength in depth, but also the variety that we can play with. Sometimes having Havertz and Odegaard in the half spaces, or then having Havertz as a tip of a diamond. Those kind of things, literally no chance we could have done last season. So
I
it's
think that's the
positive.
thing, really. It's about trying to be as unpredictable as you can be. It's not just, sticking to what you know works, because at the end of the day, teams are always trying to suss you out. They're always trying to find ways to beat you, no matter how good you are. You're at all successful, and teams are working tirelessly to find a way. Obviously, the top analysts in the game and stuff. So you're always wanting to adapt. You're always wanting to have the versatility of the squad, and yeah, I thought bring this up as well from Curran, because it seems that Alex Ranison has joined Cardiff on loan, which, as you say, can't believe the moves we're making. Well, no, it's best of luck to him there. And unfortunately, from that Nottingham Forest game, I thought it was a really good game. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think we've played better, but I also think we dominated very well. If we'd scored a lot more, which I think we had quite a few cutbacks in that game, where another day it's 2 or 3 goals from it, but that's
Mm.
just how it is, really. Uh, it's sad, but Yuri and Timber doing his ACL, unfortunately, officially confirmed by the club. Very, very gutting for him, really. Obviously, his dream club, joining and being an absolute star, really, for Arsenal, in just a very short space of time. The fan reaction he got, just how big a blow is it to Arsenal, that and himself, of course, mentally. All the best to Yuri, and I'm not sure he'll be watching this, but if he is, on the off chance, then all the best to him. But no, speedy recoveries to him. Injuries are horrid, and ACLs particularly have just. There's been quite a lot already. Militao, Courtois, Buendia, quite a few
Mings.
others as well. Mings, yeah. And what's wacky as well was, supposedly, I can't fully remember where I read this, but Timber wasn't really in pain or anything when the ACL happened. He was fine to carry on playing, and he didn't really feel any pain. So that's why we, kept him on. But it was also like the medical staff were, if you see, or if you feel of any pain, then, let us know. And I think he actually wanted to stay on, is what I read. And even the day after he was walking, I don't think I've made that up off the top of my head. I hope I haven't, because there you go. But no, that's just, it's crazy that can happen. But just how big a blow is it, Abdul?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, like the point about him wanting to play on, and not that there wasn't like a huge problem at halftime. Apparently, the medical team, they checked, they looked, they didn't feel he was like badly injured or needed to come off. So it's just a case. It's just very unfortunate. And obviously, I wish him the best of luck. It's a huge blow, mainly just because he was brought to be our defensive depth. He was brought in to be a player that can replicate Zinchenko, not fully, obviously. Zinchenko's like a very unique player, but being able to invert from both sides, being able to just being a really solid defender. And like what I've really enjoyed the most about him is just, besides those little like feints that he does, little turns he does, his technical technique is really really nice. Like he's very low. He's got a low center of gravity, but he used that to just push players off and nip the ball off them. And he was doing that a lot. Like I remember against Barcelona, he did like 2 or 3 times against Rafinha. He was doing it against City, against Forest. So it's a huge blow, and I wonder if the club will look to try and sign somebody. Ideally, I would definitely look to get someone into the
You're
market.
you're into my
So
next question already.
yeah,
I
you
was
know what?
gonna.
I'm psychic at that. You know what I mean? But I mean, it's a huge blow, and you'll probably be back in about 6 7 months, I imagine. But then it'll probably take like another month or two before he's fit. So I can't say his season is over, but because you never really know. He could come back even sooner. But a large chunk of the season is effectively cut out, and we have to pretend like he's not there, which is really, really awful. So I imagine the club will look to replace him in the market. Some sort of market opportunity should be out there. There's definitely players I have in mind, but yeah, I think they definitely should look to invest and just bring in one more player, and then yeah, I think we'll be
That's
fine.
that was definitely going to be along the lines of the next question. I mean, there's been a lot of discourse, as there naturally would be. There's been a lot of transfer rumours, once again, as there naturally would be. Few options getting mopped up on the market. I've seen Lewis Hall seems to be joining Newcastle, which to me seemed a bit baffling. But other than that, I think we've been linked to Benjamin Pavard. There's been previous fullback links, which people are slightly bringing back to life. I'm not entirely sure if we go after the likes of Mohamed Simican again, or I remember we were linked to Henriks very briefly. I'm not sure if there's
Mm.
already anything in that. We're linked to João Cancelo for quite a while on and off. That seems like he's going to Barcelona, but you never know with Barca. And Ivan Fresned there is he another one who Spanish player from Real Valladolid.
Well,
Uh,
I've heard the lead.
Valladolid, brilliant. Thank you. But yeah, he's I don't want to say he's been linked. It's more been a fan base thing again. But I'm not going to say specifically name wise. Feel free to mention any names you would like to see. But what profile do you think Arsenal need? Do you think someone inverting? Do you think someone more right dominant? Do you think someone who could play as a right back, centre back hybrid, or someone who can more invert and play further forward? Maybe both fullbacks. What's your preference?
Generally, I feel like either a right back who can invert or a right back who can replicate Ben White to an extent. I feel like on the left hand side, I mean, obviously we have Zinchenko. We can use Kivior there. I've enjoyed seeing him there, although I do feel like he still has a few things to learn in that position. Again, if we go for a left sided one, I wouldn't be too well. I would take that definitely, but I feel like maybe like a right-sided player, either someone who can invert or someone who can replicate with Ben White. We're linked to like a lot of like quote unquote like overlapping right back profiles. So obviously there was like Simic, no, not Simic somewhat, but Sasha Boy we're linked with. I never thought that would happen anyway. We're linked with Jeremy Frimpong for a while. Fresneda is someone who can somewhat invert, but he's more of like someone who can drive with the ball inside and out wide like Ben White can. So Fresneda is probably someone that I would like, mainly just because I know for a fact he'll be quite cheap. I know like 17 million, I think, is roughly around his price tag, maybe a release clause. So that's someone I would like. If not, I mean, Simican I'll be fine with for the right price. Hendricks for the right price, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. I mean, the club have hundreds of targets out there anyway, so it just depends on which ones are available for a good price. Because obviously, I don't see us spending 30 million plus on someone. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I think there are players out there. Just depends on the right price, whether the opportunity is there in the market. So yeah, but generally someone who can invert and or someone who can drive forward.
Yeah, I'd completely agree with you. I don't really think we need to revisit the centre back side of things. Of course, if we can, great. If the player
If we can,
can play
yeah,
as a centre back, then like your Urian Timber, he was perfect, unfortunately. But
yeah.
we just kind of have to write it off for the next, as you say, 6 to 7, maybe more. Hopefully less. Hopefully comes back okay, and wish him the speediest of recoveries.
Mm.
On the topic of transfers. Obviously, it's always a classic question, but we're in the transfer window. Rumours are always about, people have a lot of different opinions. Would you like to see, and do you think Arsenal will sign another player? And when I say would you like to see, of course, we just discussed the fullback or defender side of things. Would you like to see a forward brought in? Do you think that's a necessity? And if so, what type of profile and what type of names would you like?
I feel it's not a necessity so much as if the opportunity is there, why not? So obviously fans are like clamoring for like a striker. For me, if we are to buy a striker, it has to be someone like a marquee essentially. I don't want it to just be any striker out there that might be good or like a good young striker coming in. I don't think that's a necessity. I feel we can wait in that position for next year potentially, and that's what I had in mind anyway. Like going into the summer, I felt we would get Rice. I thought we would get another midfielder, and it ended up being Havertz. Not what I expected. Um, Although obviously I'm happy with Havertz anyway. But and I was expecting a defender, probably like a versatile defender. And we got Timber, who is. I'm surprised I didn't think of Timber, but he's honestly really perfect. And yeah, it's a shame he got injured. But those three positions were what I was expecting. And then after that, anything else might be some like a player coming out and then a player coming in, like with Turner and Raya. Turner out, Raya in. So if you told me this would be our window, you know, uh, Rice, Havertz, Timber, Raya, I would have been happy with that. You know, uh, but now I don't really see us getting in a forward. I mean, we could get a right winger, but I feel like our squad is really, really stacked at the moment. Um, and we need to get some players out the door first. Obviously, we saw Runarson's left, but there's a whole host of players that still haven't left. So I think that's what we need to focus on at the moment. And then if something comes up along the way or at the very end of the window, yeah, sure. I mean, we were linked with some right wingers. I can wait in that position because we have cover for Saka. It's just we don't have like a genuine like replication for him. But you could argue, maybe it doesn't have to replicate Saka entirely. Maybe it just has to be someone who can replicate some things he can do. But yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy generally with the squad. Like we have options on both wings. Jesus can fill out there. Nelson's here. Trossard can fill out there, although I don't feel he's like best position. So it's generally about versatility more so than we need that profile, we need that profile. At the moment now, we just really need like some versatility, and I can wait for that. It doesn't have to happen like this week. So
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think where we want to see more movement is on the sales front. I mean, there's been a few recent rumours. There's been Nuno Tavares, supposedly Forest have submit an official proposal, but we've not really seen too much more of that. There was talks of a loan deal. There was talks of 30 million, but to be completely honest, I don't really think that's going to happen for that price. I just don't think that's realistic. But I would be very much open to selling him for the right price. Kieran Tierney's been linked a lot. I'd imagine the Timber stuff would lighten our stance a tiny bit on him, although we could be quite complimentary to play with Urian Timber. But obviously, that's
yeah,
out the window for the time being. But it's hard to know if he does stay or go. I'd expect him to stay, but for a big offer, to be honest. And I'm definitely a fan of his. Really like the player and stuff. And he's been linked with Sociedad, but I think it's important that Arsenal restamp their authority as a good selling club.
mm,
It's not just worth, oh, you will only pay 25 million. You want 38 million. All right, we'll compromise on like 28 million. There's no reason for that to happen.
yeah,
It should be all right, you pay 35 or more, you can, you can maybe sort a deal out. You don't, then carry on, look for someone else because it's not worth developing or continuing a reputation we've had in the past of being poor sellers, and teams can kind of come in and be like, all right, we'll pay pennies for your players. So I think that's what's important with us standing firm on Balogun. Obviously there's another few players whose future in doubt. Obviously Curran mentioned Runnison going to Cardiff, but yeah, on the topic actually, Malik, welcome to the stream. Thoughts on Ratligan? I think Balogun he means to Monaco. What fees are you saying? I think for me personally, I think 40 to 45 million. I think he should be worth 45 million or more, particularly with the clubs supposedly interested. You got Fulham, there was links to Spurs, but I don't think that's ever going to happen.
yeah. It's not. Yeah, I
Monaco,
think.
Inter
Yeah, I think
previously.
40 to 4. I think 40 to 45 is about right as well. Um, Obviously, if an English club comes in, I think we can definitely say 45 plus. But Monaco, if they can pay like a bit over 40 million, 42, 43, that would be ideal. But yeah, I do feel eventually we can definitely get a good fee for Balogun. I don't expect us to sell him on the cheap, and we don't really need to. We can just say, you know what, no. And
Yeah,
keep on also, he's still a lot of players in our squad still account as like under 21, so we don't have to register him in the squad. So if he does stay because no one paid the fee, he can be in the squad anyway. So it's not like we have to get rid of him. But I'm very very certain that a club will pay 40 or over 40 million for him eventually because yeah, his value is quite high. Clubs want him. Monaco are really desperate for a striker at the moment as well. So eventually they will pay, I think, or somebody else will.
that's the thing. I think as well with the nature of the transfer window. things get desperate for teams. There's a lot of teams who need positions, and then one result might just loosen their stance and straight up be like, all right, we've got to act serious here because we drop points on the opening day or don't play well on the opening day and alarms are ringing and
Mm.
or second game and teams all of a sudden start panicking and jumping into the market. And some teams naturally just start their business quite late, which for me isn't the approach, but clubs do what they like and I guess have for a while. Welcome to the stream, Scott. He said, please buy Nuno Forest, 30 minutes a bargain, get it done. Here we go. For me, I just I just don't believe 30 million for 1 second, to be honest. I don't think it would go from little links to all of a sudden Forest would pay 30 million,
Yeah.
particularly as like a bid. I think it would very much more be a case of maybe Arsenal want 30 million, which I don't think to be the case either. But I think a 15-20 million sale, and I'd be very happy with that
Same.
personally. But away from the sales side of things, obviously there's still a few other players whose futures are in doubt. Obviously, we've got a very big squad. But looking ahead to Monday night now, Arsenal's trip to Selhurst Park, always a tough fixture. I think Palace haven't lost in the league, I want to say, since January or something along the lines I saw a tweet of. So I think I'm just going with that. Might be wrong. If it is, it's what it is. But yeah, they're a good team. Hodgson's done fantastic for them ever since he took over from Vieira. Of course, they did have a very favourable end of season run in, so
Yeah.
it's hard to judge records for what they are as a face value. But they're a good team. Of course, massive boost for them signing Michael Elise to a new contract out of the blue, but no pun intended with blue. But but yeah,
Good one. Good one.
he's not going to play anyway, so out the blues would probably make more sense. But anyways, I think Gahey I've heard is back to fitness, but
Greg? You say Greg?
uh, did I say Gahey? Did I say Greg or
You
Gahey? I
said
thought I
Greg
said
Gay.
Gahey. Brilliant. I meant I
Yeah,
meant
market.
Gahey.
Yeah.
I thought fair enough. But yeah, seems like for Palace will be at largely full strength. So interesting one. Monday night football is always a fun one. Obviously, Arsenal a few years ago crumbled at Selhurst, but that was a few years ago. Last season, start off the season in the best way by beating them 2-0. And this season, a Monday night football, second game of the season, is I say it's a nice fixture to get out the way early because Palace are not a wild card team. Obviously, they seem to be losing quite a lot of big players. Zaha, it seemed like Elise was going, but that's not to be the case. Potentially, Czech Doucouré could be off to Liverpool. That's a bit unknown. But talking from Arsenal's perspective, as Malik brings up for Palace now, obviously Urian being injured, huge blow. But I would agree if Zinchenko was fit. Supposedly he played a game the other day against Luton in a 3-0 win, which is nice. Obviously, good fitness. And good to see he did play minutes in that game. And Gabriel definitely, I think, Selhurst. I think the idea of taking out Gabriel isn't one to look too much into it. It was almost experimental, but it was also a case of them not playing a one you, not having that center, that really aerial threat. So we
Mm.
can afford to play someone instead of Gabriel, who's also, top quality and other aspects, of course, and aerially and stuff. But I think Gabriel will be straight back in the team. I think we should have brought on Gabriel when one you did come on Saturday, but that's uh, the past, I guess. But yeah, Abdul, do you agree with Malik?
Um, I definitely agree with in regards to Gabriel coming in. I'm not sure about Zinchenko, more so just because he hasn't played for 3 months and he's been in training for a couple of weeks now. Obviously, he played that behind doors friendly, but I feel like he'll need a few more weeks just to get back up to speed. So I reckon by the end of this month, September, probably he'll be starting. I don't think he. So I don't expect him to. And ideally, I prefer if he has just a few more weeks of fitness, coming off the bench, that sort of thing. Uh, I probably would start Kivior at left back instead because obviously he's fit. There's no match fitness, worries with him. I have a feeling Arteta might play Tomiyasu there, and I love Tommy. I really do like him a lot, but I don't feel he's quite as comfortable on the left. Um, yeah. Scott's saying he'll probably play Kivior. I would prefer if he plays Kivior since Zinchenko is not fully fit. And I think overall with the balance of the team, generally he doesn't play Tierney. again, like Matt said earlier, I feel when I watched Timber, I felt Timber, if he plays right back in a game, Tierney will be a good option on the left. But unfortunately, Timber's injured, so I don't expect Tierney to play that many games. But I hope he plays at least a good amount of games. We've got 4 competitions. He absolutely should be playing if he stays. So yeah, I'll play. I'll play Kivior. I will play. I'll play. Obviously, I'll play Kivior, Gabriel, Saliba, White as my back four. Um, and
Would you
then
keep the same dynamic as Forest, or would you go back to the City side of dynamics with the midfield?
I think probably something similar to City. Yeah, but obviously with Kivior at left back. Not sure whether I'll I'm not sure if Rice will play as a 6 or as a 8. That's something I'm a bit unsure of. Probably prefer to play him as a 6 just because I feel like Palace away is a game where I feel like you can play an extra like more offensive minded 8 like Havertz for example. Um, so yeah, or even Trossard. I think Trossard definitely deserves to start this game or next game. So
It's
yeah,
so
there's a lot of
difficult with
options.
Trossard because even that behind closed doors game against Luton, he scored a brace, and in
Yeah.
general, he's been fantastic for us. But
Mm.
you've got Eddie Nketiah, who obviously the profile he offers, but the quality he offers. I think the performance he gave against Nottingham Forest, the cameo against Man City,
Yeah.
the game against Monaco was very good too. I
Mm.
think he's an integral part of the squad, and I'm very pleased Arteta sees it that way too. I think
Yeah.
the outlet he is, his all-round game has just improved so much, and it's exciting to see how he continues to develop. But
Yeah.
as you say, Trossard, obviously very, very versatile, played as an 8 in pre-season, has played off the left quite a bit in place of Gabriel Martinelli, and of course as a 9 for Eddie Nketiah. But
Yeah.
it's tough to know. Gabriel Jesus, I don't quite think will be
No.
ready in time for this week, maybe next week, maybe the week after. But I'm very happy with the squad as it is, and Scott's just put his preferred midfield and attack. I'd imagine Partey, Odegaard, and Rice, and then Martinelli, Trossard, and Saka. I'm not against that at all.
Yeah, I'm
Uh,
not gonna start either. Yeah. Although I do want to see Eddie play. Just I think Eddie deserves like another start
I
for a
agree, yeah.
good performance.
Particularly after the performance, yeah, against Forest, it's tough because you've got a squad of so much quality, so much depth, and just it's difficult,
Yeah.
to give players their due playing time. But that's where the Champions League comes in. That's where the Carabao Cup comes in. The FA Cup comes in, and that'll be easier to rotate longer down the line. Malik posed a question: who do you guys see as credible challenges for the title? Do you see Newcastle's contenders? For me, I'm not convinced. Emery's kamikaze highline playing their hands are most likely overhyped. Interesting question. Obviously, diverting a bit away from Arsenal. I think that'll probably be the closing sector of this podcast. I'm not sure if you have anything to add on the Palace game before we discuss this question.
Uh, I think we covered it generally. The only thing is, actually, yeah, generally everything we just said. Gabriel should play. I think Kivior should play. Yeah, generally everything I said. Yeah.
New third kit was debuted this morning as well. Not debuted, sorry, but the video was out.
Yeah.
Fantastic video as usual from Arsenal. I
Yeah.
don't
I liked
quite
it.
think that'll be playing on Monday, but
No.
next away game, I can't even remember who that would be. Everton, I think.
Everton.
Couldn't.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't be Everton. I'm not sure when it'll play actually. But anyways, on to Malik's question.
Mm.
It's an interesting one because I do agree with you on the Emery's high line side of things, and I don't think Newcastle had to work particularly hard. And I think when you go to St James's Park and play like that, you're asking to get demolished, and that's what did
Mm.
happen against Aston Villa. But at the same time, I do think Newcastle are a really, really good team. I think the depth they have in general, the quality of signings they're bringing in, I feel like they've gone under the radar again in terms of, the Lewis Hall signings. I think is a really clever signing. Obviously, they need a left back as well, but you can play as a midfielder too, which is another area they were quite short in last year.
Mm.
Obviously, Alexander Isak again shined against Aston Villa. Should have got a hat trick. You've got Callum Wilson as depth. Obviously, St. Maximin's gone to Saudi Arabia, but then you've got Harvey Barnes as his replacement. So you've got a lot of quality. Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton, of course, Tonali, which I think is a steal from AC Milan. But there's a lot of quality. I'm not sure if you think Newcastle could be huge challengers, Abda.
I don't think this season. Next season potentially depends on any more business they do. I still feel like I think the Lewis Hall signing is really, really good. Like, and Chelsea have made quite a mistake letting him go. I think as a left back, it depends really how he fits in, because last season Eddie Howe liked to have Dan Burn there and effectively be like an extra centre back rather than like an actual flying fullback, and then they generally just had Trippier. I'm almost said Tierney because it's KT, both KT there. But Trippier and Livramento as right back options really good, both very good at driving forward. Yeah, it depends just what this kind of system they really do with them. But I really like the signings. I like the Tonali signing. I do feel 55 million is a lot, but you know, to get like a good young midfielder, I suppose sometimes you have to pay that kind of fee, obviously. Um, Barnes, I'm sad that they let go of Sam Maximan, but I suppose for FFP reasons, potentially Barnes coming in. I mean, not potentially, sorry. Barnes coming in has been really good. I think potentially would be a good signing for them. Obviously scored on his debut. And then
The
who else?
celebration as well,
Celebration.
fantastic.
I love his celebration ball, yeah. But yeah, and I think Lewis Hall was a good signing as well. They spent quite a lot of money this summer, but in comparison to other teams, cough Chelsea, it's not that much. So yeah, I don't know. I think Newcastle definitely need another year. I feel like centre back depth isn't the best, and I feel like they really sort of probably targeted a right winger, but they went off their left winger. Maybe next year that could happen. And what else was it? Yeah, at left back obviously they got Hall. Centre back depth is not quite the best, and I expect them to get a defensive midfielder, but I suppose the squad is generally built around Guimaraes being the sixth, and it's worked for them so far. And I think Guimaraes fits that position. He fits as an eight as well. So yeah, I think the squad generally has a lot of stability. That's the thing. So when people making their predictions, they say, "Oh, Newcastle finish fifth, sixth, whatever." They have a lot of stability in their squad. They haven't had to
They have a
really change.
fortress of a home ground as well, which is
Exactly that as well, yeah,
massive.
and like their style is quite replicable. I mean, obviously the question that Malik poses, the high line played into them. Yeah, of course, because again they won 5-1. I don't think it was a 5-1 match, obviously, and later on, obviously, the scoreline was just padded out a bit. But I think they'll still be a really good team this season. Challenge for top four definitely. And I think this season City and Arsenal will battle out for the title again. The I feel like Manchester United still need another year or two. Liverpool, I'm not sure that they can challenge the title
Confusing,
this
aren't
season.
they? Yeah.
Very, yeah, like very, very. The second half was very disappointing for them against Chelsea. So, and yeah, I think if it's just City and Arsenal, I mean, I don't think United should be too disappointed if they don't if they don't challenge the league this season, even though they spent quite a lot of money under Ten Hag. Because quality-wise, I don't think the squad is quite there yet, and the performance against Wolves wasn't good enough. So,
Just to pose one more question as
mhm.
well from Scott. He said, I think with the Champions League, Newcastle might struggle. Do you think that's gonna have a big impact on them? Do you think that's kind of just they've addressed a lot of depth issues? Well, where do you see that affecting them or not affecting them?
um, it might affect them in terms of the whole season. In terms of rotation, because they didn't rotate that much last season in some positions, like defense, for example. Um, so I think it will definitely make them struggle a little bit, but I think they can overcome it definitely. So like they'll be in pot four, so they'll probably be in a tough group. If they get out of that group, second or first, they'll be in the round of 16, and by that point, I think generally they should be fine with the schedule until then. But afterwards, it might be a bit tricky because February, or should we say March onwards, is when it's really difficult because you're playing Champions League quite regularly. If you qualify, if you progress, so I feel like it's only going to be a problem if they keep progressing, because in the latter stages they might be thinking, okay, now I need to play the Shells, or I need to play Target, or I need to play this Murphy, and or alongside will have to come in. So that's only when it's really gonna make them struggle. But I think in the first half of the season they should be fine. They should be fine, really. It just depends what
There's a
people.
January window as well,
There
which
is, yeah,
if they choose to go down that route, I'm not sure
yeah.
if FFP is a big issue with them. I see mixed
It
reports.
actually is, yeah. It's a
To
big issue with them. It's a big issue with them
is it?
because they're having to. Yeah, that's partly why they sold to Sam Maximan.
I was kind of thinking it
And
was, but
loan
obviously
with
you see a
Hall.
lot of media stuff. It's always hard to kind of know if things are exaggerated issues. But I think the loan with obligation for Lewis Hall from Chelsea is a sign of FFP. But
Yeah,
then again, you could say the same about Raya. So bit of an unknown entity. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but
I think one other thing is, again, in regards to FFP, they don't have as many sellable assets because most of the players were players who were like in the championship or when they were fighting relegation. So players don't want someone like uh like Lascelles, for example. No one really wants Lascelles right now. So if they wanted to sell someone, they can't really sell someone of like they can't sell someone who's important to them, but they also can't sell someone who's not. So they're in a bit of a tricky position, but honestly, like the window's been fine enough, really. I think Newcastle fans generally be happy with that window. So
to
I don't think it's a big deal.
answer the question then of Malik, who do you guys see as credible challengers? I think early days can be a bit deceiving, although it gives you a good idea. Deceiving in a sense of obviously as a big reactionary platform where if a team plays well game one, that's it. Of course, that can be the consistent for a large part of the season, as we saw with Arsenal last season and in the past. And obviously, starting off the season well was really important. But I think it is also hard to know. Things can change. In a title sense, I don't see anyone really coming near to Arsenal or City. As Abdul mentioned with that United game the other day, I was a bit mortified how poor they were. And then Spurs, obviously, I thought they looked quite good, but they're not of that level. Chelsea are at a bit of an unknown entity, but they've got a top midfield and some top players, of course, with Moises Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez, Romeo Lavia,
Love you.
etc. But yeah, they're a bit of an unknown entity. Newcastle, for me, are the most strong in that sense. I'd expect United to still be up there as they have that good way, I feel like, of beating the lower sides. But then Wolves, I know, is their bogey team. They looked rather toothless against. But, anyways, I think that more or less ends the pod for today. Thanks a lot, Scott, as well for the nice comment. Really appreciate it, and I'm glad you enjoy the content. It's been a enjoyable pod. Thanks a lot, Abdul, for coming on.
Thank you. No, thank you as well, bro. Yeah, I appreciate you having me here. And yeah, it was a lot of fun to come on here.
We should have another podcast out next week, obviously discussing the aftermath, well, not aftermath, but the afters of the Palace game on Monday night. The Champions League draw, I believe, is a week later, so potentially we'll discuss that. If there's any other big transfer rumours or anything else relating Arsenal, which is big, and a final mention as well. Fair play to the Lionesses, doing brilliantly, getting to the World Cup final. Thing just popped in my head. I was like, it's got to be said. And new Arsenal signing Alessia Russo, scoring for England to make it 3-1. So great stuff for England. Great stuff for Arsenal, opening the day with a 2-1. Scott just says 3-0 Arsenal. I presume that's for the Palace game
Yeah.
on Monday. That would be fantastic. I'd probably go for similar 2 or 3-0. Abdul, you saying?
Uh, probably go with the 2-0. Yeah, standard 2-0.
Lovely stuff. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thanks a lot, everyone, for listening. As I say, do if you can subscribe is much appreciated. Liking the stream if you do enjoy the content, and following all our Twitters in the description. Mine, Abdul's, Dan's, who will be back next week, or I'd suspect so, and the AFC Newsday Twitter account. So until next time, thanks a lot for tuning in, and have a great rest of your days.